Hello and welcome to Movie Marathon Mood. It's the show where we watch a bunch of movies and then we talk about them. It's as simple as that. On this episode, we're talking a double feature of Aaron Sorkin scripted movies directed by David Fincher and then by Danny Boyle. We're talking, yes, The Social Network and Steve Jobs, two tech giants that have influenced our modern culture in so many ways. We'll be talking about both of these movies, differences and similarities, all of it right here on Movie Marathon Mood, which starts right now. Hi, everyone. I'm Jesse Ghostrap, and I'm joined this time, for the first time on this channel, by my friend Josh Thompson. Josh, how you doing, buddy?
Yo, what up?
So, a little relatively brief background that I think is interesting to the start of this show. Movie Marathon Mood has been something in the back of my head for a while. And the first time I ever was going to do an episode was in 2019. And I'm going to pick on you just a little bit, Josh, because I don't know if you remember the original plan to watch, the newest Star Wars movie was about to come out and we were going to watch all the Star Wars movies. Me as a lifelong fan, and you not so much, being so familiar or being a fan. And we started the Phantom Menace,
Yeah,
and I think technically we made it through the Phantom Menace in terms that it actually played on the screen all the way through. But somewhere in the middle, I heard a sound that I assumed was your pug in the other room snoring. And it turned out when I looked over, oh no, that's Josh asleep on the couch.
yeah, I hear you. I'm like one of the weirdest sci-fi fans I know. I love sci-fi movies and hate Star Wars. You know,
What's bad is I still have it in the back of my head to do that sometime with you just because I enjoy torture so much.
yeah, what a great intro for me here. The guy who hates Star Wars is gonna get everybody to love me.
That's the way I like to endear people to my friends. But yeah, I know we were going to do that, and then it kind of all fell apart. The world fell apart shortly after too, when COVID happened. Just shortly after we started doing that, and didn't start doing movie marathon mood till me and my friend, our mutual friend Drew Cordell, till he joined the party. And we did have done a whole lot of episodes on here, and now it's you and I actually doing this, my friend.
Party time. Excellent.
So I didn't know what we would ultimately do, and we were talking, and somehow you said you'd been watching Steve Jobs stuff, and that brought up the idea of Steve Jobs. And at another point, you brought up what I thought of Andrew Garfield, and I was like, I've been in love with him since the Social Network,
Yeah,
and that made it kind of an obvious potential double feature because they're both tech guys. Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, both huge people that to today's culture, technological revolutionaries. Both movies are written by Aaron Sorkin, and like I said, it's the kind of perfect double feature in a lot of ways.
no doubt. After I was laid off from the pipeline, I tried to teach myself how to code this summer and found myself reading the biography of Steve Jobs. Uh, and so the Andrew Garfield thing came about. I was watching the newest not Star Wars, still got me on that. The newest Spider-Man movie. And of course, after that, everyone's asking me, who's your favorite Spider-Man? Who's the best Spider-Man? And, honestly, I liked Toby back in the day. And, but I wasn't so familiar with Andrew Garfield, so I just did this weird Andrew Garfield marathon and just basically fell in love.
As everyone does with Andrew Garfield.
And I guess in a roundabout way, when I found out he was in that movie as well, it put it over the top, and it's what got us here today, a mutual love of Andrew Garfield, I suppose.
Yeah, this will soon become the Andrew Garfield show, but I wouldn't have a problem with that. If I was going to pick my favorite,
So who is your favorite? Have you already answered this in a previous
I don't
show?
know, Spider Man,
Yeah, a favorite actor portraying Spider-Man out of the three.
Andrew Garfield. No
Oh,
joke.
oh, really? Okay,
I
yeah.
really would pick him. And I know he's not everybody's favorite. He's kind of gained, I don't know, he's kind of gained more of a support system since No Way Home came out. People kind of coming back around and recognizing him as a good Spider-Man. I think a lot of people liked him as Spider-Man and didn't like him so much as Peter Parker. That's what a lot of people have said. But I really like him in that part. But that's me. I mean, Tobey Maguire is a great actor. He's not my favorite Spider-Man. It's not that I hate him as Spider-Man. It's just that I like Tobey elsewhere kind of more than I like him in the Spider-Man movies. I have a weird relationship with those three movies, and yeah, Tom Holland's pretty great though too.
Oh, yeah, agreed. I first saw Andrew Garfield in the movie Hacksaw Ridge. I had no idea who he was. I didn't even realize I didn't even see his the Amazing Spider-Man movies when they first came out. I I don't even know that I've seen both of them honestly, but when I saw Hacksaw Ridge, I mean that I thought that was just insanely good. And then I went back and watched that
Yeah.
again. I'm trying to think of this movie where it's like this really strange movie, maybe in Mainstream. I think it's called Mainstream. It came out in 2020. You ought to check
Oh
it
yeah,
out.
yeah, where he's like a influencer.
Right.
He's taken a lot of different parts. Yeah,
Did you know though? Talking about the Social Network,
yeah,
I read that Andrew Garfield originally went in and auditioned for the role of Mark Zuckerberg,
yeah. That would be something, wouldn't it?
but I can't remember why they he ended up with the role of Eduardo. But I also read that originally they were going to give the role. I mean, they were going to offer the role to Shia LaBeouf, and I don't know what I think about that. I mean, I'm not a huge Jesse Eisenberg fan. I thought he did a great job, but I don't know. I've been real curious to see what Shia would have done with that, but
No, yeah, that's. I mean, Shia is a dynamo. I mean, he's a. I think he's a really terrific actor. Uh, can be quite amazing. Jesse Eisenberg, for me, I like him in the right part, and I think he's great as Mark Zuckerberg.
oh yeah, agreed there.
I practically just see him when I think of Mark Zuckerberg. I see Eisenberg first. The intensity
Yeah, he
in
nailed
his
it.
performance, but he has these moments too that are just like I don't know. There are moments of humanity that I think make it really work. Where you see this vulnerable guy, and I think for me that's what kind of pushes the movie over the top is those little moments that kind of give it range. It's like the very end of the movie, and it's brought up like you're not really an asshole. You're just trying so hard to be.
Right.
That in a lot of these proceedings, where people were being tried, uh, being sued, you're going to have a lot of pumped up people ready to inflame each other and not necessarily telling the whole truth. So I mean, you have to imagine that is at least somewhat true. That a lot of these stories that we're hearing are they have a lot of the intensity of people wanting to be a part of something huge like Facebook, wanting a piece of the pie for themselves too. That has to play a part. And to be fair, like they're all rich. They're all super wealthy. I mean, Eduardo was a billionaire, so I in a sense, I wouldn't weep too much for him.
So, with Jobs and Steve Jobs, we had Fassbender and we had Ashton.
Yeah.
Well, so your job is to cast the second Zuckerberg movie. Who are you casting in the role of Zuckerberg?
Oh wow. Um, now the question is not just casting somebody else, but do we cast with the insight of an Ashton Kutcher? Is that what we're? Is that what the degree? Are we shooting for a Fassbender Kutcher paradigm here?
Hey, you take it any way you want. I'm just curious who comes to mind. So I got somebody in mind. I'm curious who you think.
You do. Well, now you've thought this question out, and now you're putting me on the spot,
No, it's just
hoping that I
I just thought about it. Just
come
whenever
up with.
whenever you're talking about Eisenberg and his performance, it
Yeah,
reminded me a little bit about the way he portrayed Mark Zuckerberg of maybe I'm this is too much, but I thought it reminded me a little bit of Freddie Highmore and The Good Doctor, and I think Freddie Highmore would be a damn good
yeah.
Steve Jobs,
Okay,
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Sure. Uh, I like that. I mean, and the interesting thing, I mean, they uh, Aaron Sorkin has talked about making a sequel, a follow up film to The Social Network.
Oh,
Apparently, he's been working on it. And if he did that, obviously, you could theoretically continue with the same, Jesse Eisenberg, the whole team. But it doesn't have to be. It could end up being a new thing, like technically a sequel, but with a new cast, and no reason you couldn't have somebody like Highmore in it. I mean, yeah, I like that. That'd be an interesting casting choice.
he should throw a curveball and cast Ashton Kutcher as Zuckerberg in the next movie.
Yes. See, I was thinking like other sitcom stars. That's the problem with that thesis. Is I was thinking of Ashton Kutcher types
Uh
that could
huh.
play Mark Zuckerberg, and then my brain went to Joan Parsons in The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon, who play playing Zuckerberg. And Parsons is not a bad actor. I'm just this is where my brain has unfortunately been going with that question. But I do like the idea of a sequel to The Social Network.
That would be fun.
That could be. I mean, I told you this. We watched a movie together, and uh, I said that it would be. I mean, kind of obvious in a way. Like it's not like there hasn't been a whole lot happening with Facebook since the movie came out. I mean, yeah, it's the question is, where do you keep the story honed in on? Because I mean, you when you look at both of these movies, it's pretty obvious that Sorkin, who I think he's one of my favorite writers, and I think it's pretty obvious he likes framing devices. Both of these movies use different kinds of framing devices. The Social Network uses a lot of its references from those hearings whenever they were all there in the room talking about suing Zuckerberg and getting a piece of the pie, suing Facebook, and they use that as a way of kind of bouncing back and forth in the timeline as a framing device for the social network. And Steve Jobs has a very clear three-act structure, all centered around the release of different Apple products. Well, technically not. The second one isn't an Apple product. It's the next cube,
Yeah, I forgot about the cube there.
right? But still three different product launches, and using that as a framing device.
I read that each of those three parts they filmed with a different type of film to
They
show.
did well. Yeah, they technically not filming the last one.
Okay, but like to parallel the changes that happened with Steve Jobs in his career and Apple or whatever throughout that, I thought that was pretty neat.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what's bad is like sometimes I like to talk about each movie into itself, but it's so easy to bounce back and forth between these two movies, and talk about their similarities and differences. But yeah, I mean, Social Network is shot entirely on digital. At least I'm pretty sure it was all digital. Fincher sometimes uses film still for a few things, but he mostly shoots on digital anymore, which I think works very well. Steve Jobs, uh, directed by Danny Boyle, who's another one of my favorite filmmakers. Fincher and Boyle, two fantastic filmmakers. But the first part was on 60 mil, the second part on 35 mil, and then the last part was on digital. And to me, and I don't mind that really, but I feel like they could have done even more with it in terms of not just the way they shot each part, but actually the style of it too. I thought they could have changed it more. But that brings me to an interesting point of criticism for me, and I'm curious your opinion on this, because the last part shot on digital, but it's from a product launch in the late '90s, I believe 1998, but before digital was HD, before we had HD video, right? And they shoot, and I don't mind that in a certain sense. I don't mind that it's anachronistic. But what I do kind of bump into personally is like there's more to the Apple story. There's more to the Steve Jobs story. Why aren't we in an HD era? Why aren't we talking about, you know, iPod or iPhone or something, actually getting more into the 21st century? I don't know. It's the framing device for me kind of gets in the way of Steve Jobs, whereas I think it works like gangbusters and Social Network.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts?
Well, I tell you, he's talking about Sorkin in his writing. I I like the
Yeah.
Steve Jobs movie with Ashton Kutcher as well, but I mean the Jobs movie, but Steve Jobs. When I came into this movie, because I'd read his biography this summer too, I felt like the Steve Jobs movie, they took it too easy on him, on the character anyway, about his relationship with his daughter Lisa. I just didn't feel like they really dove into that. And I went into the Steve Jobs movie with Fassbender thinking if they go easy again, I'm not going to like this. They have to dig into that. And my goodness, it shaped the whole movie. And I thought it was just an excellent choice to go head first into that. And
Sure.
it just it got me thinking too. It's like Steve Jobs, I mean, changed my life. I mean, my first computer was an Apple. I'm doing this on an iMac right now. Um, and I think about, but there's always like the great,
I thought you were doing it on the next cube.
yeah. When I saw that, I wanted to get a cube just for decoration. I thought that was pretty neat. I totally forgot about that. But what I was saying is that it seems like some of history's greatest people that have accomplished some of the greatest things always seem to have this flaw about them that I don't know the word villainous that makes them. I mean, just downright dastardly. I mean, well, I mean, to each their own. I mean, everybody's going to, but it's not just Steve Jobs and when he first had his daughter denying her and all of that. But I think about gosh, MLK going out on his wife, the Buddha basically walking away and
Yeah.
abandoning his family, JFK. I mean, to me, R. Kelly, a genius musician, look where he's at right now. Woody Allen, Michael Jackson. I've read Einstein was an absolute asshole to his wife. But I don't know. What is it about these people who are accomplishing the greatest things in life and within their own respective fields, and they have this fatal flaw about them or this side to them that just it almost makes I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with it, but it's just like it's all these great people, and there's this whole other side that's like I don't know. It was just, but I thought they did a great job digging into it, and they faced it head on. His relationship with his daughter, and I loved it.
Sure. No, I mean, I feel like that's core to the Steve Jobs movie, and the parts of it that are successful. The heart of the movie comes to their relationship and its kind of development over these three different periods, right? I agree with that part of it, but I'm curious. Do you think, especially as an Apple fan, that they could have done even more if they're going to tell the Steve Jobs story in terms of like pushing us into the 21st century and the kind of technological advances too.
For sure. I felt like the Kutcher movie dealt more on that side of things, and it definitely could have, and it would have been enjoyable. But I thought they took the brave choice here in focusing in on this relationship. I mean, he's done so much
Sure.
on a public level, but I mean, to me, I couldn't get past it. Reading his biography, and just knowing about that relationship, I couldn't get past it and just overlook it as an audience.
Right.
And so I'm glad whatever's true, not based on whatever. I thought the movie was excellent by focusing in on that. I mean, honestly, it made it for me and it put it over the top,
Sure.
among other
Yeah.
things compared to the Butcher movie.
Well, sure. And I haven't seen the Kutcher movie, so I can't really judge it. I can just judge the idea that that sounds silly to me. But that's not really a fair criticism because I haven't actually seen it. But that I think that's an interesting thing to talk about, like the emotional through line of the Steve Jobs movie. That it's successful in that way, but I just find the 3 act structure, like everything happening within like minutes of a product launch, to be just a little bit forced.
Mm-hmm.
So structurally, I'm curious, like, do you think that that works, or is it was it completely successful? Were you able to get past the artifice of how tight the timeline is for like everybody central to Steve Jobs' life to be right there, right in the minutes before a product launch?
Sure. Actually, I like that. I thought it was entertaining. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not sitting here thinking, "Oh, this is what exactly how things went down in real life," but as an interesting way to tell a story, I don't know. I thought it was in. I liked it.
That's fine. It's fun. It is fun, and it's like it certainly adds to the intensity of it, right? Like it keeps up a certain pace. I think partially because of that structure. So in that regard, I think it's very successful in terms of its rhythm. At one point, initially, David Fincher was going to be the director of the Steve Jobs movie too, and ended up passing. But I think it could have been. I mean, it would have been a very different movie, but it'd been interesting to see what he would have done. Considering what he did with the Social Network. See, for me, and I don't know how familiar you are with Danny Boyle, but for me, he's one of my favorite filmmakers. Steve Jobs is kind of a second tier Danny Boyle movie, second tier Aaron Sorkin movie, but still really entertaining. But it's just not as great as it could be for me. Whereas The Social Network is one of Fincher's very best movies.
Okay, so you're what Danny Boyle. What about Sunshine?
Sunshine's top tier for me, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, I love that movie.
That was I felt like I do too. I thought Sunshine was like an under the radar sci-fi movie that I just absolutely loved. I mean, the shots of the sun and beautifully shot and everything. But I didn't know if you'd even seen Sunshine. That's what I love sci-fi that's not Star Wars. I love Sunshine.
We may or may not have smoked something while watching Sunshine at one point years ago.
You know what?
Undoubtedly,
I believe
you
it.
don't remember
I do
that.
believe it though. I believe it happened. Hey, quick question. Steve Jobs, well, never mind. You can't say because you haven't seen the other one. I was going to ask Seth Rogen or Josh Gad on who played the best Steve Wozniak. But
Oh, I like the idea of Josh Gad.
yeah, I thought he nailed it.
Josh Gad is a really good actor. Seth Rogen is one of those people. I love him, and I am like I love seeing his range because he's obviously a very funny, talented guy, and he's been doing a lot more work behind the scenes too as a producer. So seeing his creative side producing stuff like The Boys
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon, that's also really cool. But I love like he apparently spoke a lot with Steve Wozniak to kind of get a feel for the guy. And I feel like even though you don't necessarily see a whole lot of Rogan in the Steve Jobs movie, when you do see him, it matters. And I think the performances overall kind of help sell these characters. That in a fast-paced timeline, you get a real sense for who they are.
Right. The more I've learned about Apple, though, man, Steve Wozniak, everybody knows who Steve Jobs is, and he's a genius, all that. I get it. But to me, the man behind it all was Steve Wozniak. I mean, he's really the one who built this. I view Steve Jobs more like a Thomas Edison.
Yeah,
He gets so much credit for all this stuff, but so much of it was utilizing the inventors and the people of his day, and the patenting system and all of this. But to become acknowledged for all of this, and in a lot of ways, I think Steve Wozniak's is just forgotten guy in history. But I know I'm getting way off the
no, it's
movie here.
good.
But Seth Rogen, man, he nailed it.
Yeah, I think you definitely nailed it. I mean, that's it's interesting when you're talking about creative, brilliant people, known creative geniuses, or people that have been hugely influential. Sometimes, not always, obviously, but sometimes end up having some sort of darkness to them or some sort of bad side that happens to varying degrees. Obviously, I feel like what that is, when it is exhibited, is like abuse of power.
Sure.
A lot of the time, I feel like the people who end up being so powerful end up abusing that power, and then you don't necessarily hear about the Wozniaks of the world as much as you hear about the people who are in charge, who have the power, who perhaps use that spotlight too much. And I think they kind of deal with that in this movie in an interesting way.
Definitely. They definitely face that head on. I mean, there was even a quote at the beginning of the movie in one of those scenes right before he goes on stage, where Steve Jobs says, "The very nature of people is something to overcome."
Yes,
And that's really a whole theme of the movie that I love the most. You know, and almost a way how he compared himself to computers in that way, and how you know he wasn't as perfect as the machine in a lot of ways, but I don't know, overcoming that human nature. I thought that was pretty damn neat.
and Fassbender, incredible actor.
Fassbender, for sure. Weird flex here, but here's something that I did not like about the movie.
I love it when you weird flex.
I'm looking at these pictures of him, and he was a balding man,
Sure, yeah.
but he wasn't portrayed balding in the movie. Why? Why can't we have these leading bald men who've accomplished, especially if it's based off a real life person who accomplished great things? Why the need for the aesthetic change on top of his head instead of being authentic about it?
And what I don't know is at what point in Jobs' life was he losing his hair early on? Because they don't get into the 21st century in the movie. So was he losing his hair already by the timeline of the
Right.
movie?
I just looked up when the iMac debuted. Yeah. Um, yeah. Never mind. I was just trying to
So
go
he
off.
did have more hair then. Well, you're trying to support bald men, and I'm all for that. But we have to be authentic here on Movie Marathon Mood. We have to.
Can we not cast someone besides Jason Statham already? Come on. That's something in American culture we've lost out. I'm not talking shaved head either. I'm talking just regular ass, balding, receding hairline. There's no room for a leading man like that anymore. There's just not.
I have my answer now. Jason Statham is Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, there it is. I would die to watch that. Oh my gosh.
I hate how much I want to see this movie now. Yeah, Fassbender and Kate Winslet were both nominated for acting Oscars. They were the only two Oscar nominees for the Steve Jobs movie.
Oh,
And I think it's interesting. Like Fassbender, 100%, I get it. I'm a little surprised. I love Kate Winslet. I'm a little surprised that she was nominated, and it's not because I think she's bad. It's just because, like, oh, like for that performance, I mean, she's good. She's really good. I like her in the movie, but I didn't necessarily see her as being, you know, Oscar nominated for it. But maybe that's just me. I'm curious. What's your take on Winslet in this movie?
Right. I mean, there was, an emotional scene towards the end where she basically, had Fassbender saying, make up with your daughter or else, which was, climaxing in the movie in a way at the very end. I mean, she really put on a
Yeah.
performance there. But, I mean, I'd have to agree with you there. I mean, I'd have to see the other nominees that year, but goodness, Seth Rogen should have got something.
Well, I exactly like I think if you could make a case for Winslet, I mean, you can make an even better case for Rogan, honestly. But I feel like that would be difficult for the Academy to accept. Unfortunately, it's kind of like Jim Carrey ever hoping to get an Oscar nomination because for
Right.
some reason they just see him being goofy and funny, and it's not fair. But I think Rogan would have a hard time not being seen as a stoner. Like it would be difficult for them to go, and see him as a serious actor.
Did Robin Williams may be about the best that ever made that crossover, if you ask me, of
Well, Robin Williams
just
successfully made that.
known
Yeah,
right. The one guy I think out of that same group of Rogan and all those guys, the one that plays it serious the best, Jonah Hill. I think he's excellent. But
yeah,
anyway, and one of your guys, what was it, Sorkin that wrote Moneyball?
yes. He also wrote Moneyball. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of comedians taking on serious roles.
I mean, not quite a comedian, but Tom Hanks started out in comedy.
Definitely, that's right, for sure.
He was, in Bosom Buddies and Bachelor Party. Like he was goofy comedy guy, and I don't think people see him in that light. And they see him as a serious contender as an actor now. I'll tell you, I just pulled up because you're mentioning who was nominated that year,
Uh huh.
um, along
What
Kate
year was it?
Winslet, Alicia Vikander for the Danish Girl. This is the 2016 awards, and Alicia Vikander won Best Supporting Actress for the Danish Girl. Then you have Jennifer Jason Leigh in The Hateful Eight, Rachel McAdams in Spotlight, and Rooney Mara, who is in The Social Network, as in the movie Carol. So there's she's definitely in company of other strong actors in the supporting actress category that year, and she didn't win. But neither did Fassbender.
So Seth Rogen didn't get nominated for um that role, but did he get nominated in Sausage Party? Wasn't that the same year? Oh god, he could have an animated
You
film
mean the
like
year
that.
it won Best Picture? When Sausage Party won Best Picture, took everything.
Yeah, I actually like Sausage Party pretty well.
I've actually never seen it. That's a blind spot for me. But yeah, I do think Steve Jobs is definitely a good movie. It's very entertaining. It's fast paced. It has a lot of stuff going for it. I just bump into a lot of it. A lot of my problem isn't on a technical level so much as it's a story level. It for me it structurally doesn't completely come together for me. Um, then again, that's just my take. I give it a solid B grade on letter grade system. Where I mean, do you have a letter grade that you would give for it?
It started off a little bit slow. I was actually thinking at the beginning I was going to enjoy the Jobs movie better, but then when they headed towards the daughter's storyline, I jumped in. B, yeah, I would too. Speaking of 2015 biopics, the other day I told you about a Hank Williams biopic that I thought Fassbender starred in. I was wrong. Same year, but it
Ah,
was Todd
yeah, yeah,
Hiddleston,
yeah.
Tom Hiddleston
Tom Hiddleston's
that played
fantastic.
in I Saw the Light, the story of Hank Williams.
I haven't seen the movie, but Tom Hiddleston's
So
fantastic.
I haven't seen it. I'm curious to see that though. Somehow I have never heard of the movie The Danish Girl until today. I know that's embarrassing.
Eh.
I saw the trailer when I was put in the DVD for Steve
Oh, really?
Jobs. I had no idea about that movie. Have you seen it?
I've not actually seen the movie, no.
Oh gosh, we're gonna have to watch it then.
Yeah, sure. We'll add it to the roster. We'll have to find a double feature or something. At least one other movie. Maybe that'll be another episode, or we'll just watch it. But I'm definitely up for it.
Well, speaking the opposite of 4K, I've been on this 90s movie kick here lately. And since you like Aaron Sorkin, what about the
Mhm.
movie Malice from 1993? Alec Baldwin.
I yeah, I I think I saw it long, long ago, and I couldn't tell you anything about it.
So I'm probably going to jump in on that one. If I have to pick one, I'm on this 90s kick like I said. What about Bullworth? Is it any good?
Bulworth, I haven't seen since the '90s either, so I couldn't tell you. I, I mean, honestly, like if it's
Oh,
a movie I haven't seen since the '90s, that means I saw it when I was a kid. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, do you really trust?
right.
Do you really trust the taste that you had when you were an adolescent? If you haven't seen a movie since then,
I
now
mean,
that we're, you know, I guess effectively middle aged.
well, yeah, definitely not. Because if you had asked me back then which comedian's going to end up becoming a famous dramatic actor and win an award, I would have said Pauly Shore. So speaking of which, that's what you need to watch. We need to watch Son-in-Law, and another Pauly Shore movie, probably Encino Man. I don't know,
You're
but you
going
need to
for the
check it out.
classics.
I can't believe you've never seen Pauly Shore. And I'm getting too in the weeds here, but
I
we've
have
got some
seen
upcoming
Encino
movies we
Man.
definitely got to watch.
I've seen Encino Man,
I was about to
but I was an adolescent once again when I saw it.
back when Pauly Shore is on top of the world.
Now I wish I was in a biodome in today's world.
Yeah, back before Pauly Shore died, straight to DVD.
Well, going. We've spoken quite a bit about the Steve Jobs movie. The Social Network movie is one of those movies. Like I said already, like it's David Fincher is one of my favorite filmmakers, and I consider that movie top tier Fincher. Which I'll spoil my rating and say it's an A+ for me,
Wow.
um, just because that's how highly I feel about it. But the thing is, like, I feel like on every level it just really works. The script is super sharp. A dialogue has never been sharper in a Fincher, or sorry, in a Sorkin script, and that says a whole lot. I mean, he's written stuff just as good as The Social Network, but I feel like, Sorkin has a certain style. It certainly can be dark, but it's not typically dark. He very much goes for character based stuff and a lot of humor in a great many of his things. And I feel like you take that and filter it through Fincher's worldview, and you have something really special. You have that sharp dialogue, but with Fincher's keen eye, and the combination is like it's killer. I have been wanting to see something like that again, since I saw the social network. Um, I think I mentioned this to you when we watched it, but like there's so many technical things happening in that movie, but it never feels like it. Like the only time the movie really kind of shows off a little bit stylistically is the Brigada scene, which is fun, but it's kind of the only time they really do anything showy in the style. For the most part, it's just you're just watching a movie, you know. even though there's all types of visual effects and things happening at the various places in it, but you're just watching a really well delivered film. But that attention to detail matters. Like you feel like you're in that time, you feel like you're with these people, you feel like you're seeing the Winklevi, the Winklevoss brothers. You're actually seeing two of them, even though they're both played by Armie Hammer. Um, I just think it works like gangbusters. It's a great, very well executed movie. And at the heart of it, though, are these characters too, including Andrew Garfield, as we've discussed our love and adoration for Garfield. For me, he's the soul of that movie.
I disagree.
Like yeah, well, we can get there. For me, he's the soul of the movie, and like the speeding heart in it. And Jesse Eisenberg is terrific as well. Uh, Even though like I said, there are signs of humanity in him, but it's interesting. Like he's a central character in the movie, but it's not strictly speaking a Zuckerberg movie. It's kind of all about the impact of a social network. It's not just about the technology, it's about how does this technology impact the way we relate to one another. So on one hand, it's the rise of this company that would end up influencing so many people's lives, but it's also about how do we relate to each other in the real world, while meanwhile all this stuff is, kind of potentially pulling us apart if we are to focus on not just business and power, but on the internet or on an artifice, on the pretend world. I'm curious, especially seeing that you disagree on Eduardo Saverin, your take here on that.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but my favorite character in the whole movie was Sean Parker, played by Justin Timberlake. I thought he nailed it.
Oh, I saw you. Well, I saw you when he like popped up on the screen, like you were like nodding along, like you were in the party just as they were describing Zuckerberg was like in on the Sean Parker. So like you were sucked in the same way Zuckerberg was, basically, right?
Oh, right. I could definitely see it. I mean, even back then, I mean, whenever Facebook was coming about, I mean, Napster, the biggest thing, at the time. And I just didn't realize how big of an impact Sean Parker has had on not just America, but the whole world and changing the culture. I mean, Napster was a culture changer.
Sure.
And then to jump in at Facebook like that. But just the way Justin portrayed him, I want to read more about Sean Parker. I thought he was such an influence on Mark Zuckerberg that really pushed. I mean, really, he was the wedge between him and Eduardo. I mean, but anyway, those three guys nailed it.
But what do you think about how that played out dramatically, though? Like when it comes to like the heart of the movie, the character interplay. I mean, obviously there's one side of it which is the rise of Facebook and the influence of these people who can sometimes be bad. But then there's also like Eduardo getting pushed out of a company that he had invested in so much.
Well, what did
Like he's paying for these people to party, and he's like, "Come on, guys, I need to be included, and you need to kind of chill." And meanwhile, Sean Parker's getting himself into all types of trouble with the partying.
the very nature of people is something to overcome. Mark Zuckerberg to me falls in that same category. I mean, betraying, a best friend to that level, I think it's absolutely despicable. But once again, it's another character, another person in real life accomplishing something amazing and great, culture changing, generational changing. And yet he's still got to treat his friend that way. And it's not even necessary. I don't know. I just find that fascinating. It's another one of those
No,
heroes with flaws.
it is fascinating. It is fascinating, but I think we're kind of talking about two different things in a way, because there's like characters who are dynamic and interesting, and then there's the human element. And to me, the thing that makes The Social Network as a story so compelling is thinking about these characters and the hurt that they have. Like even Rooney Mara, who is just seen intermittently. She's in the opening scene, and then Zuckerberg bumps into her again later. Like she's so good in the movie, and kind of speaks to something else that's happening under the surface, which is like, good luck with your video game thing. Like like that whole she's trying to do her own thing and live her own life, and Zuckerberg kind of treated her like garbage.
For sure. I thought both stories, the primary character in both Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, both characters were raging narcissists. But that's what I took from seeing both of them. Both characters, to me, I mean, it was their primary driving force was themselves, and at the cost of whoever else, no matter how close they were to that person. There wasn't a person they wasn't willing to sacrifice, it seemed.
But then there's something else there too, which is both of those guys at different points in the stories are also accommodated. Like they're both told at different points. Like Zuckerberg's told, "Oh, you were willing to give away, certain innovations for free," and Steve Jobs is told, like, "Oh, you're, somebody who celebrates what people actually accomplish rather than how much they make or anything else. You want to see people making stuff." And I feel like there's something interesting there too. Like, sure, you could say they're narcissists who are willing to sacrifice people to do what though? Like at the end of the day, they seem to be most interested in the innovations as opposed to simply being power hungry. And I find that dynamic kind of interesting too. Like I'm really
Definitely.
like psychologically curious, like how much were they motivated by their rise in power and money versus were they interested in the ideas themselves?
Maybe what separates those successful guys right there is their end goal was not power, their end goal was not them recognition for themselves, but their end goal was accomplishing their vision, making sure their vision of what they thought was best for the future or innovation or whatever was going to be accomplished at whatever cost. Um, I see what you're saying. I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely a different shades of gray right there. Speaking of Dakota Johnson, I mean, does she just play a character that has sex in every movie? Oh gosh. Anyway, pretty interesting for sure.
Oh, now we're gonna have to go down a Dakota Johnson rabbit hole. I got to watch Suspiria
I'd have to watch a lot of
that she
movies
was
to
in.
watch a Dakota
Is one of my
Johnson.
favorite movies.
Yeah, I'm way out of the loop on Dakota Johnson. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at her movies right now. I don't even think I've seen any of them.
Well, Suspiria, like I said, is one of my favorite movies in recent years, so I give a hard recommend to that one. Um, but and that's what's so interesting. If people were just known for something like 50 Shades, then you're going to have a certain opinion of them. It's kind of like Robert Pattinson for a lot of people is Twilight, but now he's Batman, and it's interesting to see people try to escape those pigeonholes, like Seth Rogen trying to escape just being a comic performer. But yeah, I for me, I agree with you that Justin Timberlake is awesome in the movie. Like he owns the screen when he pops on, but I also think it's evident that he has some problems of his own, like those demons within him that are kind of keeping him from being as responsible as it could have been, and perhaps it had even more success. But again, like all these people are still wealthy, so I think that to me that's part of what makes The Social Network really interesting is that I find myself really thinking about all those different shades, those shades of gray. Thinking about who these people are in terms of their business influence, the influence of the culture, but also thinking about the human story underneath. I'm thinking about all those different layers as I'm watching the movie. I mean, do you what do you think about like just the the story from a character standpoint. I mean, Andrew Garfield, Eduardo, is kind of a tragic figure of the story.
Definitely. Without a doubt. I mean, he's the definitely. I mean, it's so tragic for what happened to that character. But when I try to step outside of it and take away from the real life story of it, if I was just looking at it regularly, Mark Zuckerberg would be a strange character for a leading character in a movie. If he wasn't a real person, if you ask me.
Sure. And he kind of isn't. He kind of isn't the main character. You know, it's a lot about the fringe parts of the story. It's more, I think, of an ensemble.
Right. I just did the character didn't have a whole lot of likable qualities about him. I was surprised at how he was played in that light. I respected that, but
Sure.
I wasn't expecting that. But the Justin Timberlake and Seth Rogen were the two biggest surprises out of both of them. I thought both of them were going to be casting mistakes, just putting a name to a character that really didn't belong there, and they both, to me, went above and beyond what I ever would have expected.
Well, I'll point this out about Social Network. It was nominated for quite a few more Oscars than a Steve Jobs movie. It actually won three. It won for Best Adapted Screenplay. No surprise there. Aaron Sorkin's script is super sharp. It's great. The editing won for Kirk Baxter and Angus Wall. I think they are two of the best editors in the business. Um, you have any take on the editing in the movie? Like, I think that's part of the success of it. There's so much stuff that happens, and it flows so rapidly and with style, but it never feels like it's going too fast. Like, it has a rhythm to it.
Right. I could follow. I thought it was great. It was a much better watch the second time around. I'm gonna have to start checking you on editors now. You've just got me on watching, just paying attention who the directors are in these movies now. And so it's like now I'm watching these movies and seeing commonalities between these directors throughout their career, and that's real interesting to watch. It's just a whole different way to start watching movies that I hadn't thought about before.
It is. Right. No, yeah. I mean, you can, like I said, for me, my opinion of the Steve Jobs movie is partially influenced by the fact that I love Danny Boyle and I've seen all of his movies. It makes a big difference, when you're judging on a curve. I'd be curious, but then again, we both ended up on a solid B. So, I guess in a certain sense, we landed in the same place, but we might be looking at things slightly differently too. Um, the third Oscar that it won, The Social Network won for Best Music. Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross,
Oh yeah.
one of my favorite movie scores of all time. That score is gorgeous. Like it has that tech kind of vibe to it, but it is so ambient and haunting and gorgeous. It really helps make the movie. And I'll just knock out the nominations. It was nominated for sound mixing, which is very well deserved. The scene that I always go to is with JT when they're in the club. Um, Sean Parker and Zuckerberg are in a club and the music's pumping, but like there's somehow they managed to make the movie where you can perfectly hear the dialogue, but you get that sense of actually being in a club without missing any details. That's some crazy sound mixing to be able to do that effectively, to give the sense of like the loud noise, but still hear all the dialogue clearly.
I read about that scene, how they shot it.
Yeah, did you?
I read that they shot the scene without the music, and Timberlake
Sure.
and
Yeah.
Eisenberg had to yell back and forth at each other as if there was loud music playing. They said they almost blew out their voices in that scene. Crazy.
And it's always funny to imagine that, yeah, from the other side, actually shooting it and people in the background dancing to nothing.
That's what they were. I read that they were dancing to silence. They were like miming it.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's insane to actually imagine that in reality, how silly that would look. or how stupid you would feel like thumping to the loud music that doesn't actually exist.
We got to shoot a scene like that though. Now I want to try that trick in a scene. We got to go shoot a nightclub scene.
Yeah, yeah. Nominated for best cinematography, which I wholeheartedly agree with, in a sense that it's gorgeously shot. David Fincher was nominated for directing. It was nominated for best picture, and also Jesse Eisenberg, the only performance that was nominated, leading actor, which is interesting. Like I think he's really good in it. I just don't think I think it's an ensemble, so a lot of people were good in it. So it's interesting that he's the only actor that actually was nominated. I almost feel like Rooney Mara could have been nominated for best supporting actress, but she's not in it a whole lot. But I think when she's in it, she's really great. That opening scene is incredible. Yeah, the opening scene, and then she pops up again later when he sees her and wants to talk to her. Tries to make amends, but she's not having it.
Right. I hear you. I mean, if Mark Zuckerberg wasn't a real person in real life, if this wasn't a biopic, it would have been a strange character to try to, get behind.
Right, you're right. I mean that's kind of the truth is stranger than fiction a lot of the times. Just knowing that this is a true story, helps kind of frame it. And I also like the, for me, you're watching these people in college at the same time I was in college.
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard not to look at it in that light too. It's like a period piece of when I was in college, because I'll never forget wondering when Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky was going to be added to the Facebook,
The Facebook, right?
because that was back when college, you had to have a college email to be a part of it. And I'll never forget too when they added high schools to it. And I thought, no, don't ruin our college party with these high school kids. And now look at it. It's everybody.
It's the whole world now.
Everyone's on Facebook now. Yeah. Facebook is the world. Obviously, there are a lot of different social media apps out there, but I feel like it's hard to ignore the impact of Facebook in particular. But it is a big, wide world.
I hear you. When I've been down in Peru, the two apps I see on everybody's phone is Facebook and WhatsApp.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just see people, my friends and stuff down there. I've seen them over the years, on their phone, just scrolling through their Facebook feeds. It's everywhere. I mean, it's just a part of life now. It's a game changer. Sorkin wrote about two different things here of two game changers,
Right.
two heroes that are hard to love, but somehow I gained a lot of respect for the characters themselves throughout, following them throughout. I mean, there were times with both characters like, there's no way I'm gonna find any empathy for these characters, or
Sure.
this is a bad guy, but it's human, And Sorkin really, I liked them both. I mean, Social Network is a far more successful movie, but I don't know if I liked it better or not. I probably have to say yes.
Yes, you like it more. What would you grade it?
The Social Network wins for me. Yeah, I'd also give it a B, but a higher B.
Okay. That's fine. Not a B plus, just a still a solid B.
Not a B plus yet. Not a B
Okay.
plus. It's like a couple
Just the
points
just the
higher.
I'm with you. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? That's the funny thing about grades. It's sometimes it's more interesting to hear what people say than it is to look at the grade itself. But you can have something have the same grade and still feel like there's ranking in there. I don't think there is a perfect ranking system. You know what I mean? Like there's always room for like continuing to rank things.
Everything you do is perfect.
Yeah, for me, Social Network is an A plus. I love and adore it. Every time I watch it, I feel like I'm catching new little details, and I just get swept up in the rhythm of it again.
Yeah, you're right about that. The rhythm of it. I love how you put that.
It's a very well. executed movie. Yeah, the dialogue, the editing, the performances are all in sync with each other. It works so well. Um, but these are two interesting movies um, that are impactful in our modern culture. I'm not a huge Apple user, but I can't deny the influence of those changes. Um, the impact of all these different innovations. Even when he was talking about iPod or hinting at the idea of having music in your pocket, and now look at the world. You can stream anything. Forget having 500 to 1,000 songs in your pocket. You can stream anything in the World Wide Web.
Oh yeah, no one would even buy a phone that you couldn't play music on now. And anything less than hundreds would not be enough. So, I mean, his vision, he was right, man. But anyway,
Yeah, you innovate the technology, but you also have to innovate the ideas. And I think those two things happen in Steve Jobs and the social network. You have the technology, and then you have a place, a platform for people's ideas and a free flowing information of it. It's interesting to see where those ideas were kind of born out. But Josh, my friend, it's a pleasure talking to you about these two different motion pictures, technological Aaron Sorkin scripted stuff.
hey, thanks for having me on. It was a blast watching these two movies. I can't wait. Hopefully, we'll watch another one here in the future, something besides Star Wars, maybe. But I would be down for Star Wars too. Hey, if we're gonna stick with technology,
Maybe we'll watch some
horror.
horror. Maybe we'll watch some Jean
I was about to
Claude.
say, if we're going to stick with a technology theme, we're going to have to throw in some time travel, and Time Cop fits the bill. You've got to watch John Claude Van Damme. I can't believe this. Anyway, I'm going to get you to watch Time Cop with me. Maybe we should watch time traveling movies. That might be something. But maybe you've already done that too. But
We could do that. No, yeah. Now you got me racking my brain to be sure what we haven't done that. We haven't done time travel themes, so that's an
I
idea.
love the Time
Um,
Machine, um,
I got several
Hot
ideas.
Tub Time Machine. I mean, the list goes
Okay.
on.
Looper,
Oh, Looper.
um, uh, Primer. That's a good one. And here we go. This is the thing. We're gonna have so many different episode ideas adding up. Uh, yeah, I know. It's a good thing. It's not a bad problem to have, but
And of course, the greatest movie of all time, the sci-fi bonanza, Interstellar. I mean,
oh
dude,
yeah, one of my favorite movies, Interstellar. All right, all right.
it took over the number one spot for me. It was Event Horizon, then it became Interstellar. The sci-fi besides Star Wars is not a joke, but
Here we go again. You don't know. Every time you do this, you're just making me want to do it more. Like that's the bad thing that's happening here is that you're making me want to talk about Star Wars. I want to feel your hate.
I will cut loose.
Thank you once again, and thank you everyone for listening to this episode here of Movie Marathon Mood.